So the first few pens that I bought from Wingsung, the Wingsung 3003, 3008 and the 6359, set a really high benchmark from the quality that I expected to get from a Wingsung pen. Honestly, those pens were amazing and just set a high benchmark from the new Chinese fountain pens that we're getting, and unfortunately the site has been let down by this. This is the Wingsung 233, and the places where the newer Wingsung pens excelled, this pen just falls flat on its ass. So the Wingsung 233 has been around with us for quite a long time. From what I understand, since at least 2011, because I found a review of it from all the way back then, and even back then it wasn't a gem or anything special, but even now it doesn't look like they've really improved on it. So the Wingsung 233, I got this pen off eBay, and for some reason they call it a vintage. You know, honestly, eBay listers, you really got to stop using that name on a new Chinese fountain pen, vintage. You keep using that naming system because I don't think you know what it means, but this is a vintage fountain pen that I picked up for $3.50, and I thought, you know, $3.50 is a little bit more expensive than a regular Wingsung fountain pen, but I'll buy it, why not? So I actually forgot about buying this pen, so when I came and actually received it, I thought I'd ordered another one of these pens. This is a Hero 616, and if you look at both of them, they look pretty darn similar. And I honestly thought I just ordered another Hero 616. Long forgotten about this pen. Don't worry, I'm not getting dementia. It's not time for me to go to the glue factory. But I quickly realized once I took the cap off that this was not in fact another Hero 616, but a really cool Hero pen. Now unfortunately, no, not Hero pen, Wingsung pen. Now unfortunately, upon picking up this pen, you can really feel that this pen is not taking up after the newer pens. The quality is certainly, you can feel that it's a lot worse in build quality than the newer pens. The newer pens feel pretty good, and you wouldn't expect them to be, you know, $2 off eBay. This one really does feel, it does feel that you bought it off eBay for $3. So let's talk about this pen. Let's talk about the specs first. Capped, it's 14 centimeters long. Uncapped is 12.2 centimeters long, and posted is about 5.5 centimeters long. And weight, I haven't weighed this pen, but it is pretty light. I'd say about 15 grams, comparing it to a lot of the other pens. And in terms of ergonomics, this pen has fine ergonomics. In terms of the length, it's alright in length, but I do like to post this pen, and this pen posts pretty securely like the Hero pen. And once you post it, it's pretty secure. It's a smooth transition from the barrel to the cap of the pen. It works really well. In terms of ergonomics actually holding this pen, I do like to hold this pen due to the tubular nib design, which we will get into later on. This pen is very comfortable to hold because there is no set place where you must hold the pen, and I always find that pretty nice on fountain pens. It's very gradual to the nib, so there is quite a bit of variance where you can hold the pen, which I really do like. The only issue I really have with this pen is where the barrel screws to the front of the pen. There is a little bit of a sharp step up, which you probably can get rid of with a little bit of sandpaper. And on a cheap fountain pen like this, I don't think a few scratches will really bother you. Now in terms of scratches, this pen is sort of resistant to scratches. I haven't made this pen my everyday carry pen because I'm using pens a little bit less because I'm not in school anymore, and from, you know, the work that I've been doing at home and just, you know, taking this out maybe once a week when I go out, I think it's resisting scratches well, though don't quote me on that 100%. if we unscrew this pen, you will see there are plastic threads, which means the plastic threads can crack after a while. I saw one person post that, but in terms of this pen, it's held up pretty well. The threads are pretty, they are thick, which is good. In terms of a converter, you get one of these squeeze converters. And here's the thing, I'm not the biggest fan of squeeze converters, especially on Chinese pens. They are very hit and miss, but honestly, on this pen, it actually works, and it works well. Fills up well and holds quite a bit of ink, much better than the Hero pens that I've been using. Though honestly, even though this is a good squeeze converter, I would much rather have a twist converter. Though it holds enough ink for over a week's worth of use. Now if we screw on the pen, you'll see that here there is an ink window, and honestly I don't like the ink window on this pen. I don't like the colour of it much, and honestly it's pretty useless as an ink window. I can't see into the thing because of the colour. The colour actually baffles me, so I don't know what they were thinking when they were designing this pen, but there you go, Chinese design. And if we look at the cap of the pen, this cap snaps on with a pretty satisfying snap, and it stays on well. So let's talk about the nib of this fountain pen, and I'm not sure what to call it because I know that there has to be a proper name for it, but I'm just going to go out and say this is probably a tubular nib, but I'm probably going to be corrected on that. But it is a nib that you used to see on Schaefer pens, and I have seen something very similar on a Pilot pen, and I can't remember the name, but these nibs they're not very common, and I think they're awesome. And to be able to get this type of nib for about $3.50, I thought was pretty awesome. And to be honest, I didn't really care when I was buying it if it worked or not. I just wanted to use this type of nib, and honestly, the nib really isn't that amazing, and I'll get into the reasons why. But first of all, let's talk about the colour of this nib. It's a fake gold plating, and quite a few nibs come with that. And I'm not faulting it at all for it. But the thing that I am going to fault it for is what they have chosen to put on the nib, because the nib, you know, without anything is fine, but they've gone ahead and put made in China and some other Chinese scripts on, and I'm not exactly sure. They say probably made in China as well, or Wingsung or something like that, but it just doesn't look all that nice. I'd much rather they say, you know, made whatever the nib is, because I'm not exactly sure what size nib it is. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere between an extra fine and a Chinese fine, but it would be nice if they put, you know, what nib size it was instead of made in China. One of the big issues I actually have with this nib is not with, you know, what's written on it, even though it might look like it, but unfortunately the seal between the join between the nib and the section of the fountain pen is not what I'd call quality, and unfortunately ink is leaking from the, well, what should be a seal, but obviously isn't. So every time I use this pen, I get a little bit more ink on my finger. Just a little bit, but it's enough to notice, and it's really unfortunate. But hey, $3.50, what can you expect? So let's talk about the nib and actually how it performs. So as I said before, it's somewhere between a Chinese extra fine and fine, and unfortunately the nib grinding hasn't been that amazing. It's a little bit it's not what I'd call scratchy, but there is certainly resistance to this nib, and that just doesn't it just makes it a little bit annoying or just unpleasant to use. In terms of natural line variation, there is little natural line variation, if any, in this pen, and I wouldn't expect there to be. In terms of, line variation from actually pressing down, this nib is stainless steel and it's stiff, but I gotta say, even though it is stiff, you can push down and you can get some proper line variation out of it, which is nice. In terms of reliability of this nib, for all intents and purposes, is pretty reliable. I have put this pen down maybe 3 times and come back to have it hard start on me, but for the most part it is a pretty reliable nib. Though in terms of ink flow, it is a little bit below average in terms of ink flow, but for a fine nib, it does get the job done. If I am using this pen for more than, say, 10 minutes, and that's not a long time, but usually after about 10 to 15 minutes, I will unscrew the back of this pen and saturate the feed full of ink, because it does start to dry out after a little while. Not completely dry out, but you can notice that it's not putting down a thick line of ink. One really odd thing that I will say about this nib is, this is not the ink or anything that I'm using, but for some reason there is glitter. It looks like glitter that's accumulating on the nib, well, at least the feed, and I don't quite understand that. And it also, for some reason, somehow, don't ask me how, but it was able to make some purple ink turn almost grey-black, and I hadn't inked up the pen, it just sort of came out black. Alright then, welcome to the writing sample for the Wingsung. This is the 233, and it's either a Chinese, what did I say, so Chinese F2 and extra fine. I'm not exactly sure, you can judge for yourself, but I'd be more inclined to say it's closer to a Chinese extra fine. The ink that I'm inked up with is, of course, Waterman Purple. I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fans of Waterman inks, but honestly I do think their purple ink is pretty nice. And as you can see, a little bit more ink to go on my finger, because obviously I forgot to wipe my finger. So let's get started with a writing sample. What can I say? I wanted to make it a little bit Christmassy themed, so you know, wants to give me a Visconti watermark, thumbs up. Anyway, so as you can see in that writing sample, this pen is not what I'd call scratching. It's pretty good, but there is a certain sort of resistance. If the best way I can sort of describe it is, it's sort of like a very fine sandpaper. It's smooth, but there is certainly resistance in this pen. In terms of actual lines, it is a pretty fine line, and you're going to get pretty much zero natural line variation. Though, apply a little bit of pressure, you won't get anywhere, but apply a lot of pressure, and you will certainly get line variation. Though, as you can see, you will unfortunately start getting railroading after about the first, little bit of line variation. In terms of wetness, we've broken the pen. Look what you've done. Anyway, we fix the pen. It's moderately wet, as I said, a little bit below average, but it works. In terms of reverse writing, yeah, reverse writing works, I guess, but I wouldn't usually use reverse writing unless I actually had to. And that's pretty much the writing sample for this pen. I gotta say, this pen, yeah, it sort of works. I'm not the biggest fan of it, honestly. The fact that it leaks everywhere and just the fact that it feels so cheap is just the biggest deal breaker. Honestly, I'd much rather just use a Wingsung 3008.